Hey guys, you're watching Halborn Flash Videos. I'm Arabdha, and today we've got Martin from Cere joining us on this Flash video to talk to us a little bit about what they're building and all the cool stories behind. So Martin, thanks again for joining in. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and we can take it from there.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me today. We're coming in live from Dubai actually, first time in a professional setting, so quite exciting. We're here with the whole team, whereas my role is a bit of everything, but formally it's the CMO role. I have a legal background, got into tech via a legal tech company, which is contract lifecycle management. That became a blockchain company. I used to work with a lot of enterprises during that time on business process optimization. Eventually, even got the United Nations to work with us to cover the land registry of Afghanistan. And I got to work with Fred and Kenzie in my follow-up job, being fairly integrated with blockchain. And at that point, they were building a decentralized sales force, at least what they raised funds for in Binance Labs. So I think in that light, the background of Fred is a bit more important. So Fred, my founder, is Silicon Valley since 1997. He started at NetObjects, developing the first web interfaces and applications. He joined the digital media team at Michael Birch's social media and network company Bebo, which was acquired by AOL for $1 billion. And Fred had quite an important role at Bebo, which was being responsible for the social feed. And after the sale of Bebo to AOL, Fred started 50 Cubes, which was backed by Tencent in their Series B. Whereas he had Brad Bao from Tencent, as the Tencent GM on his board, who is also now still one of the advisors of Cere Network. Brad raised more than $1 billion with Linebike and is a super helpful advisor. Going into the process of joining Binance Labs, Fred was actually the first in the Binance Labs office in the first cohort, followed by his good friend Sandeep Narwal, co-founder of Polygon. And ever since they came from Binance Labs, they've been iterating from decentralized Salesforce to currently with the goal to becoming the leading Web3 infrastructure provider. So that's something I'd like to tell you more about.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. I'm always fascinated by all the backgrounds and cool stories of founders behind companies, and this one definitely is one of them. Martin, why Cere? Before I ask you a little bit more into telling us a little bit more about the platform itself, why the name?
Yeah, so Cere comes from Cerebellum, which is also the name of our US entity, Cerebellum Network. And Cerebellum is the piece of the brainstem which ensures for the inherent logic that come with the neural processes. So I think it's a pretty clever name, for a company which really, considers itself the leading data and intelligence platform for Web3.
Great. So as I was checking out Cere, the first thing that jumped out at me was DaaS. So data as a service kind of a model. So I'll let you explain this and what Cere is all about.
With Cere, we consider ourselves to be the world's first truly decentralized data protocol. And to capture really in one sentence what we're doing, it's what Bitcoin we do to data, what Bitcoin did to money. So instead of your key, your coins, it's your key, your data. And the problem that we're solving with our decentralized data as a service is that if you look at current dApps, it's just a smart contract and a wallet. So we've covered identity and payments, and now we are hitting the next frontier, which is decentralized data. And despite it being talked a lot about, no one has really solved it. So if you think about Filecoin, it's merely a decentralized Dropbox, whereas 99% of the cloud revenue has been left on the table. Dropbox market share is just a fraction of. Think about what AWS is doing. So in order to accelerate the actual adoption of decentralized data, we really want to make it as simple, as easy as your typical data and payment SDKs. So if you think about how we do that, it's really a process and strategy that we focus on acute use cases for established businesses. And every time we work with a new partner, which I can tap in a bit later, we work one integration at a time, often together between development teams, which is a challenging exercise, but it's the only way to make Web3 adoption easier, robust, and then most importantly, self-serviceable, so that the building of the documentation, the validating with our partners is very helpful for us in order to start driving towards this ease of adoption. And if you think about how we got there, we've had a lot of support from our friends at Polygon. So we, together with the Polygon team, we launched Cere Freeport, whereas we created an interface which allows for the minting and configuring royalties, whereas we attach permissionless data and assets to NFTs, which actually allows for use cases like the delivery of a piece of data, such as a movie or a picture or a GIF, directly to the wallet of the NFT owner via their wallet. So in order to to showcase what that could actually deliver the end user, we built DaVinci, and DaVinci is the first Web3 experience platform, and it's also the first use cases which actually use decentralized data to give these deeper user experiences. So we have all these reusable components that we built for DaVinci, such as the customizable wallet, the publishing tools, the NFT minting, the marketplace, the smart contracts. They should all be used by second and third party integrations in their platforms, which is happening as we speak. So now working with developers and a couple of enterprises that we will announce on very short notice, we're ready to start onboarding millions of users via these white label tools and services to that can be integrated into their existing products.
I love all the names that you're playing with DaVinci as an experience. Can you tell me a little bit more as an example, let's say a realistic example of what someone can envision while they use the DaVinci platform for deeper experiences?
Yeah, definitely. So if you think about our first party application, when we launched DaVinci, we worked with amazing artists like Antti Karpinen, multiple World Cup winning photography artist, who has been working with us on selling his content as in a very generous way, by delivering us almost the world best assets to kind of test the system. And what we did is we've been selling these NFT tickets, which we were able to do so via social media, via our own website, via third-party websites. And these tickets gave access to an exhibition, which was really like a gallery feeling, where Antti was describing his experience working with Cere and also tapping into his art and the reasoning behind his art. And I can highly recommend checking it out, either on the DaVinci or his website. But the cool thing was that from this gallery, we actually built in from the video player, we built in the auction overlay, which allowed Antti to basically tell about his work, show the work, and have it actually being sold directly from the video player. So it really became this immersive experience. And this is going where no, either a Web 2 or Web 3 company has really gone, because in the end, all that people want is exclusivity and experiences. And that is really what we can uniquely offer. And if you think about really where brands and influencers and those kind of things are heading in the future, and artists, it's all a content game, right? So once we validated the functionalities of the tools, which are all modular, we were able to start working with Live One. It's a public company from the US, and we were working closely with their team, their tech team, their marketing team, digital agency, which introduced us, led by Carl Fremont, our advisor from Quickly Simpson. And what we did with them is that we showed them how DaVinci worked, and we were able to luckily convince them to be working with us and really do a lot of amazing work between our two development teams. So what we ended up with by building DaVinci was actually a full-blown integration into their existing system and application. So they have a web app and a mobile app. And basically what we now have provided to them is a way for them to sell NFTs directly from their platform, from their app, where these NFTs can give access in the form of QR code to a festival, but also the same NFT can unlock exclusive content of an artist that plays at the festival. So they have a whole roster of artists who are now are getting ready to be launched on the Live One platform. That's between music artists, podcasters, influencers, etc. So and then the next frontier will be the brand and the brand loyalty, which we can talk about a bit later.
Wow, that sounds absolutely amazing. I'm definitely going to check out the experience you mentioned right after this chat. So Martin, when you're embarking on a journey as big as you are, so just decentralizing data on Web3, that's quite a path you're taking. What part of adoption are you on, and what's the product roadmap looking like?
Yeah, so the roadmap is really focused on getting our DDC V2. So DDC is Decentralized Data Cloud, which is our core innovation. And Decentralized Data Cloud is a completely decentralized data protocol. Again, as I said earlier, we want to have the same robust system in place for data as Bitcoin has for money, where there's true ownership and zero censorship resistance. So you have to imagine that there's a lot of ease of adoption that needs to be in place in order to actually are able to deliver on that promise. So there's both on a protocol level, it needs to be secure, decentralized, robust, highly simulated, that we can take a lot of different use cases. And on top of that, we should be able to actually harness the power of decentralized data through our tools and services. And again, we do that via a couple of use cases, but I think another one which is one that's very cool to highlight and that shows really the power of the Decentralized Data Cloud is our the gaming demo on Cere that we're launching soon. So the way you have to imagine that is that you've probably seen all the backlash that Apple got for their 30% on basically everything you do within their app ecosystem, and that's because it's very hard to it's impossible to run your own applications on iOS without going through the App Store. Well, what we do is we provide a service. Shortly, it will be self-serviced, where game developers can edit their game JavaScript pack with just a couple lines of code, after which they can upload it to the DDC and then expand it with a whole set of Cere tools and services, which in the end allows them to build up their own game marketplace, or their own actual Steam, which has no royalties going to either Steam or the App Store, and everything will be browser-based. So what it allows for, if you just have a creative, you've all seen the ads on your Instagram stories for these games. And why can they keep pushing those? Because the consumer acquisition cost is lower than the cost they make of people actually embarking in their game and starting to use the game. So by hosting these games serverless on the DDC, you can launch your ads straight from Instagram, where people can start playing the game directly in their browser in Instagram, where they can compete in a very simple match 3 Candy Crush, for instance, type of game. They get a high score, or at least they get a score. They see their position on the leaderboard. And if they want to establish their position on the leaderboard, they need to create a wallet, which independent of which game you play, which game developer, the wallet will always be a white label wallet for these integrators. And what it enables you is to, once you're on the leaderboard and you have one of the top positions and there's a timer that's running out, let's say Friday at midnight, is the top 5, if you would give the properties that the top 5 will all receive prizes between 1,000 USDC and 50 USDC, or there will be 5 different NFTs tied to it, which makes that you can actually build a game economy completely outside of the App Store. Because once you actually own the NFT and you have your Cere wallet, you can just sell or trade your the NFT that you won or purchased on the serverless marketplace, which we again launched as a white label service for these game developers. So you can even have Candy Crush in the App Store, and you can run your Web3 Candy Crush straight from Instagram and tap into both markets. Whereas a lot of players will be eager to, for instance, go for that Bored Ape, which will be dispersed at the moment of when the timer ends.
Oh, wow, that completely takes experience and integration as well, I guess, to a whole different level, and definitely looking forward to seeing some of that in action. From this conversation itself, you mentioned game developers, you mentioned artists, content creators. So who are the key users, the key players that are using the ecosystem in general?
Yeah, so at this point, it's mostly digital media companies. So what we provide for them is really a censorship-resistant, white label package of solutions, which they can tailor and brand in their complete own way. So if you think, for instance, we're close to finalizing the integration for a fine art white label marketplace, which is run by, I'm not going to say too much about it because it's going to be quite a splash, but you have to think about it that they work with the world's top models, and these models all have an enormous following. And at the same time, the fine art company has more than a decade of exclusive coffee table books, big events, exclusive events. and a very large social following themselves with a big Patreon account. But at the same time, it doesn't allow them to really tap into their hardcore user base. And what we do now is we're going to hand them over their white label platform, which not only allows them to run their, let's say, own branded OpenSea, in which they can have, again, all these exhibits, all these immersive exhibits and experience, etc., where they can upsell, not only sell tickets, which are collectibles, which empower you to be part of a fan club of a model, but you can also get deeper access to this talent. So you can go to one of these exclusive events, which usually not even tickets are being sold for, and meet your favorite model or talent there. So you can imagine that there's very Web3-like. The incentives are very aligned, and the cool thing is they're actually going to take their whole Patreon, which is currently very successful, but they see that there's a lot more value if you would be supplying those that access to that in a form of series subscription NFTs, in which one NFT can give access to a whole bunch, let's say 50% of all the content, and from there on you can buy separate NFTs that give you access to the videos, to more explicit material, for instance. Whereas the data is being streamed through the user wallet, which holds the NFT to the video player of in the user's browser, wherever he is. So that's one of the examples. I think another cool example is that we're working with a very large animation studio currently, where we will be essentially building a Web3 mini Netflix for them. So instead of them having to give away a lot of their rights, they have decades of animation history with incredible historic content, but also current Pixar grade content that we'll be rolling out. And for us, we found a way for them to tap into their existing user base, but also we can help them acquire new users through our user acquisition tooling and our experienced team, which can help them with tapping into new audiences. So both solutions we're very excited about, and will be more information announced in due time.
Okay, looking forward to that. All of that sounds quite interesting and fascinating. And I'm going to take a little move from talking about clients to going to the other side of the community, which I think Cere would be pretty big on. So how do developers and how do the retail itself partake in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so if you start with developers, so we've been running a fairly successful extended developer program, as we call it. So especially at the start of Cere Network, where we were moving from testnet to alpha and beta mainnet, we want to have a robust and scalable ecosystem, which is actually decentralized. So instead of us running the majority of the nodes, which some blockchain projects tend to do, we want to have work towards a decentralization from the start. So in order to make sure that these validators were run by developers that were actually had a close relationship with Cere, and they were understanding of what we were developing for them to eventually start developing on, we ran this so-called bootcamp. And the bootcamp consisted of 4 weeks of different tasks in order to be able to start running the validators. So it was actually some kind of a threshold to be working with us. And the idea is that now that we have a fairly decentralized beta mainnet, we want to eventually both expand on the validators, but now the focus is much more on the start of the opening of our repos for people to really start using all this incredible innovation that my engineering team has been building over the past 4 years to showcase to people what's under the hood. Because now we're building these end solutions for enterprise clients in ways where no Web2 company has ever come close to. And the idea is, of course, that with a big and engaged developer communities who have proper incentives in the form of both Cere tokens and revenue opportunities, that they can that they see the documentation that's so well described that they can directly start working with it, and at the same time look at our existing use case to see how we implemented it before, and ideally, of course, how other developers have been taking the open source material and have used it themselves. So by having all these success use cases and keep on expanding on it and rewarding loyal contributors for their contributions to the network, we both increase the value of our network for its usage. The Cere token, which is used for the data delivery via the content delivery nodes and the data node. And last but not least, of course, the reason to buy and hold Cere tokens, because there is actual utility tied to it. So if we can get all those developers aligned, which we're now working hard on here in Dubai, the big objective here is really where we, by the way, have our offsite. If I didn't mention it before, we're with 40 people. And the purpose is really here to start with strategizing the rollout of all these repos to make sure the documentations, the descriptions, the purposes are all well rolled out. And we can start with the decentralization, which, as you probably know, is important for things like top exchanges nowadays. They don't put any project out there, just like that. You really need to demonstrate that you're working towards decentralization. So that is for the developer community. And next up, we of course, and in parallel, of course, we work with our. We want to use all these success use cases to also bring it to our retail investors, because what retail community members are of course interested in is, okay, so I'm holding this I'm purchased this token. What is happening with my investment? Well, the only way to describe something super abstract as a decentralized data cloud and decentralized data protocol is by getting big brands, big names to start using it, to build press around it, and to give the community actually something to syndicate. So we're working on the Cere Angel program, which will be as you see, often in the Web3 space, an ambassador program in which our loyal community members and people who actually contribute value to the syndication of the Cere vision and the Cere message can get rewarded for. And of course, we'd like to invite everyone to join either one of these communities, because being in blockchain for 6 years, I know the value, how valuable a engaged community is, an exciting community. I've also been through a couple bear markets, which of course we're kind of going through one right now. But I definitely have high hopes for the future, for the Cere team, for the Cere developer community, for our clients, and last but not least, our retail investment community.
So we just talked about data, decentralization, community, and Web3. So we can't leave security out of the equation. What's your approach to security, and what's the overall security strategy you have?
Yeah, so we've been very pleasantly working with Halborn as our key security and audit partner for the past 2 years, and your team has been a massive support with us every step of the way, and we've been able to iterate together with your team, and we've audited every piece of innovation and effectively co-innovating between our teams along the way. And because there's a lot of different components to our tech stack, which means that the Cere, there's a lot to audit, which is good for both our companies. And the strategy we have is really tailored to our custom needs, which means that our infrastructure has separate accounts and environments on a protected virtual network for each customers. The blockchain needs to be secured by validator stakes. All our dApps or DApps use cryptography for authentication, so that's wallet signatures and data access, so that's essentially asymmetrical encryption. We have multi-sig wallets for all foundation wallets on the Cere blockchain. We use Fireblocks for our digital asset management, and all our secrets are stored in protected cloud services such as AWS Secret Manager, GitHub Secrets, etc.
That's a lot of security steps that you just mentioned. What do you look for in your cybersecurity partner?
Yeah, so like I said, it's really about being able to co-innovate and work with a company that understands where we are going with our protocol. And of course, Halborn is one of the top security audit companies respected by the market, and your team has been able to help us identify key security issues throughout development, and that's only possible if you have a partner which works with you every step of the way, where we can periodically run these full security audits for every new code the dev team delivers. And if I just look at our channel, which we have on Slack between our partners, the proactiveness that comes from your team, things like, hey, I see you guys have a new website. Is it something we can help with? And how are things moving on the decentralized data cloud smart contract side of things? Do we already need to schedule an audit? And that's really where the co-innovation comes in, and something that we're couldn't be happier with in the form of collaboration with the Halborn team.
Always very glad to hear that. And we definitely see security as a continual process than a one-off thing. So talking about the collaborative work between Cere and Halborn, would you mind talking to us a little bit about the work that we've already done and everything that's lying in the milestones next up?
Your team has been helping us in a broader sense, as you said, from websites to absolute protocol delivery. So think about the audits for the smart contracts, the audits for the infrastructure, the web services, clients apps, JavaScript SDKs, Cere wallets, every other tool that we have been released so far and integrated so far into solutions like DaVinci and Live One. And next to that, what your team is currently helping us with is so the consistent monitoring and security advising and consulting that you do. And we have a whole list of products that we're about to release. Before, of course, we open our repos up. We have the sanity check from your team. So the audits of the new and upcoming products such as the white label marketplace, Freeport 2.0, where we expand into basically any EVM compatible blockchain, making the DDC truly blockchain agnostic, the Cere wallet, standalone wallet, etc. So all these tools, are under continuous audit by your team. And if you think about, how I see where your team can help us in the future, it's of course the continuous auditing. That's, with all the hacks, security is key. And if you have a decentralized data protocol where you work with sensitive customer data, where you work with files which a lot of money have been paid for these assets via the purchase of the SDKs, the periodical audits need to go on, and from the front-end clients to the SDK, and up to, I think most importantly, to make sure that we secure our clients, that your team actually comes in and checks their white label solutions as well, how it fits into their tech stack or ecosystem, and make sure that nobody in the ecosystem is at risk of bad intentions.
Great to hear that. Security is definitely an always-on approach. That's at least the credo that we believe in. And thank you again, Martin. This has been an absolute pleasure learning a little bit more about Cere and everything you're building around it, and looking forward to all the updates coming up in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been wonderful. And thanks again to your whole team and Rob and Steve and everyone for your amazing work.